in arbitrary place, then you need to reprogram all the routers to understand that thing.
Okay, sir. So it will add complexity.
It adds a complexity, and
That's
ultimately I need to reprogram my router actually. That I
yes.
don't want. I just
Okay.
want that, okay, fine, my router is understanding either IPv4, IPv6, and IPv6 enabled routers understand both.
Hmm.
Both stack I implemented, and on the fly I am not changing my router because that's not a practically possible. That it's a reconfigurable kind of a router, because that's one time configured, and then based on the program which is written, it dissect the IP packet and then process.
Okay, sir. I was just thinking that while the router, when the router maps IPv4 to IPv6, at
Mhm.
though there maybe we could have done, we could have
So
added
I
this, but
so
yeah.
practically means basically this dual stack approach is not used in a means real networks. As an approach, it has been somebody has means proposed that, okay, yeah, with this dual stack way we can do that. But tunneling is something that is used wherever you have the IPv4 and IPv6 coexist. So tunneling is the better option, and that is used practically.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we can start now today's session. Okay, it's already recording started, so let's move. Hmm. Hmm. Okay, so good afternoon. We will have today in today's lecture we will discuss two things. So now formally we are starting the routing, because when we say is a network layer means all of means the first thing which comes immediately in our mind is, okay, something related to routing. Okay, so now we reach to the routing protocol or routing algorithm level. So today we will discuss first routing algorithm. So that is the Dijkstra routing algorithm. So we will discuss two routing algorithms, Dijkstra, that is also called as a link state routing algorithm, and another is a Bellman-Ford. So that is a distance vector routing algorithm. So this we will discuss in the next class, and the Dijkstra routing algorithm, the protocol uh, which has implemented the Dijkstra routing algorithm or link state routing algorithm, or the protocol works uh, on the Dijkstra routing algorithm is OSPF. So OSPF stand for the open shortest path first. It's a routing protocol which is predominantly used in the IP routers. So that protocol also we will briefly discuss. But before that, we will do our one topic, leftover topic from the previous class, that is ICMP protocol. So ICMP protocol, as I think little bit I have explained in the previous class itself, that it's as its name is basically Internet Control Management Protocol. That's why its name is ICMP. So this protocol's role is reporting the errors, and means doing the simple queries like we do the ping utility we use to check whether my server or the machine is live or not. So the ping utility is working on the ICMP protocol only. Right. So this ICMP is a helper protocol that supports the IP with the this facility, and it is used for error reporting, and it is used by hosts and routers to communicate network layer information to each other. And ICMP lies just above the IP layer. So if you remember, I show one network layer picture in which that, okay, routing and then ICMP. So ICMP is in some text we show as a part of IP protocol, but it is above the IP protocol. I will tell you that the reasoning behind that, okay, from where this means this justification came, that okay, it is above the IP layer, because any ICMP packet is carried by the IP ICMP packet is carried by the IP datagram. So ICMP messages are encapsulated as IP datagrams. So this is this says this diagram, or this in block diagram you can see. So we have like so this is ICMP. This is a complete ICMP message, right? And this ICMP message comprises, one is ICMP header, and this in header there's only three fields are there: type, code, and the checksum. Checksum purpose, you know, type and code. I will let you know that. So based on this type and code value, means we use for the different purposes, error reporting, different kinds of errors are reported using this. So based on that, appropriate code and type is selected, and this space is unused. And so it also contains, this ICMP message also comprises the IP header plus the 8 bytes of the payload of the IP header. And this is used for to know that, because it is, this ICMP is used for the error reporting. So error reporting means with respect to some IP datagram received, and say for example, a IP datagram is received which is size is larger than the MTU value. So now a ICMP message will be created, and that message, the type will be used as a, that datagram is too big, and that message will be sent by the router to the sender. So now sender should come to know that, okay, corresponding to which IP datagram this error message is generated or created. So for the identification purpose, the first 8 byte of the payload of that IP datagram and the corresponding IP header is attached, or it's a part of the ICMP message along with the ICMP header, right? So from the ICMP header, it will come to know that, okay, what error type is there, and then from this datagram information, it will get that, okay, oh, which datagram actually generated this error, or due to that error is generated. So that's why this additional bytes of the IP datagram is attached along with that have triggered the error. And then it is entire ICMP message is encapsulated in the IP datagram. So that IP datagram, so the payload of the IP datagram is this, and the IP header is, the all header fields are there in that. And now this IP datagram is moving from source to the destination. If you just look at that, so it is basically 8 byte total size of this ICMP header. So type 8-bit type and 8-bit code. 8 bits are used for the code, and 16, so 2 bytes are used for the checksum, and this is for additional information. Otherwise, if there is no additional information, then it can be 000, all the values, all the bits are initialized with that. So that can be used for some additional information, maybe some future enhancement in the protocol. That usually we people keep it some option that, okay, in future if you add some functionality, at least we have some field is there. If it is not used, then it's not a problem. Otherwise, it can be used, and accordingly that additional options can be used. Like in TCP also option is there, IP4 options field was there. So you can consider this as a similar kind of that. So when a host receives an IP packet with ICMP specified as an upper layer protocol, you know that in IP header there is a next header or next or upper layer protocol. That field is there. In IPv4 it is upper layer protocol or protocol field is there, and in IPv6 it is a next header field is there. So in that it is specified with what is the next, where this IP datagram will be means delivered to which protocol what will be the next protocol. So if ICMP is not there, then it can be either TCP or UDP, and if ICMP is there, then so that ICMP is specified as the upper layer protocol. So then it demultiplexes the packet, and the way it demultiplexes the way it demultiplexes the TCP and UDP packet. So in similar fashion, it demultiplexes the packet to ICMP, and then based on this type and code, the appropriate action is taken by the receiver. Okay, so now here you can see the the message types. So message type and the description is written for our understanding, and this is a type, and this is the. So 3 means it's a destination unreachable. So if you remember the destination unreachable, so destination unreachable is used for. So within destination unreachable, your different codes are there actually, right? So these for the destination unreachable, these codes are here. So type and code, these two things we need to mention in the here, type and code. So type is 3 and code will come from for destination unreachable message type. These are the codes. Like that, time exceeded, there are multiple codes are there. For other message type also the codes are there. So that you can check from the maybe from others internet. But yeah, that's not required. But yeah, just to understand that for destination unreachable, what are the codes are there. So 0 means NAT unreachable, 1 means host unreachable, 2 means protocol unreachable, 3 means port unreachable. So for the traceroute program, for the traceroute application, when your packet reach to the last hop, means basically that is reached to the destination, then from that hop also you want a reply back. ICMP error message should be generated because now it is reached to the destination. So in the trace route we use a port which is unlikely to be a port number, means highly unlikely port number is used. So then at receiver that port is not available, so it will ICMP message will generate error, that is a port unreachable. So then it will create a message of type 3 code 3, and that reply will come back to the sender, and through that the sender will come to know the RTT between sender and that destination, that last hop to which the destination is connected, right? So this way the entire path RTT it can get it. So this trace route example I will show you in detail as well, but yeah, just to you can understand from this. So like one more important message type is their source quench message. So the type 4, the source quench message can be used by the routers. This ICMP you can say message is used by the routers to send the congestion information to the senders. Suppose a router is congested in the net. Congested means router's queue is queue occupancy is, let us say it is almost 80% or 90% of the total capacity. Then the router may consider to send a message to the sender so that senders can reduce their sending rate. So this is a one way of handling the congestion in the network. We call as a choke packet. So routers can send the choke packet that indicates to the senders that this network is now congested, so they can reduce their sending rate. Like these two messages, I think you are familiar, echo and echo reply, that is used for in the ping application. So in ping application, we use these two error messages. When you send a echo message, so that is ask a machine if it is alive, and then machine can reply with the echo reply. And so in that case, ICMP message type 8 and type 0 are sent. So this is the use of, so basically it's a helper kind of a protocol which is used along with the IP at a layer 3. So this is a traceroute example. So just to recall that, so how suppose this is a source and wants to know the RTT for each hop between this source to the destination. So what it does, source sends the series of UDP segments to the destination, and the first segment it will send that is with the TTL1. So what happened? Destination is this, but the TTL value is 1. TTL value 1 means it will just reach to one hop, and after that it will because that hop count reaches to 0, and then the ICMP will generate the error message from this router indicating that TTL expired. So the TTL expired message will be reached, and with the help of that, this S will able to find the RTT between this and this. So I will get the first hop RTT. Then for the second hop, what it does, this traceroute application does, now next time it will send the TTL value as a 2. So now this packet will reach to up to 2 hops. So for every, you can say to every hop, it sends the 3 messages. The idea is that, okay, out of 3, maybe some can be dropped, because UDP messages, it can drop also, it's not reliable. So out of 3, at least 1 will be, I will get a reply, and so that I can get the RTT value corresponding to that intermediate hop. So that's why the 3 probes are sent. So in the output of the trace route, you might have seen in some of the, you see them stars. So let us say in place of 3 values, there's 2 values are appearing, and 1 is showing as a star, means that is either it is not responded by that router, no packet was generated, or maybe this packet might have dropped. So only 2 responses have been received. So for TTL2, so here in the next case, the TTL will expire here. TTL value will become 0 after traversing the 2 hops. So then the error ICMP error message will be generated, and with the help of that, it will able to find the RTT between this. So like that, it goes hop by hop, and ultimately, as increasing TTL 3, 4, 5, ultimately it will reach to the destination. Now TTL expire message cannot be generated. So for that purpose, they use the port number in the trace route they use, which is unlikely port number. So that port number is not available here. So that's why it will send the port not reachable message, error message. And with the help of that, it can find out the RTT for this last hop. So then entire path is known. So this is where it is used. Okay. So this is port unreachable type 3 code 3 that we have already seen. And then basically source stops once it gets the type 3 code 3 message, means now it reached to the destination, and the entire path between source to the destination is now known. Okay, so now we will move to the routing algorithms and routing protocol. So is there any question from ICMP? Although we have not discussed much, means there's some basic stuff only. So, but still, if you have any query, can answer. Okay, so I think we can move to the next thing. So routing, as okay, we know that. So typically a host is so in a network, if you see a host is attached directly to one router, which we call as a default router, right? So so you have a router, and then that, okay, the host is, at least the host has to be connected to the router. Although means you say your machine can be connected to the switch, and from the switch based. So ultimately from the local area network, when you're means the first hop, which is let us that is connected, that is layer 3, which is layer 3 device which is connected, that is the router. Or you can say the router is basically interface between your network and the other network. So router basically, if the with the two interfaces, router have two interfaces. So this is a one network, it is considered. This is another network, it is considered. Here also maybe you have a host is connected. So I will say that, okay, this host 1 and host 2 are in a two different networks. Just a simple case, just two hosts are there, but they will be considered in two different networks are there, right? Because this interface is different. So this is different subnet and this is different subnet. So two separate networks are there. So typically a host is attached directly to one router, which is called as a default router, and that default router connected to the source host we call as a source router, and similarly a default router connected to the destination, that is called as a destination router. So ultimately what I want to say here is, from source to destination, suppose is host 1 to host 2, if you want to find the route, what path it will take from source, this host 1 to host 2, a packet, if I send a packet from host 1 as a source and host 2 as a destination, then which path it will take. So this problem of routing between the host 1 to host 2 is boils down to the routing the packet from source router to the destination router, because ultimately so although here it is just a one router is there, but yeah, that's a more realistic scenario is this. I may have this kind of thing. So here one host is connected and here one host is connected. So this I say source router, source host, and this is a destination host. So now if I want, so source to destination, which path a packet will take or a datagrams will take. So ultimately, this routing problem is boils down to this source router to destination router. What is the path actually currently available in the network? Because then the host is anyway, it's a one hop away, just direct link, it is connected. So once the packet reaches here, it will definitely, it can be forwarded to this. So routing has to be done from here to here only basically. So we'll say that, okay, it is from source router to destination router basically, the routing, the packet that is known as a routing problem. If you just look at the routing algorithm, so the taxonomy of the routing algorithm, the we can classify in three ways. One is whether the routing algorithm is a global centralized or a decentralized. That's a one way of classifying the routing algorithms. So global or centralized routing algorithm means, as the name suggests, that each node has the complete information about the connectivity and link cost. Means in the given network topology, let us say autonomous system. I hope you remember what is autonomous system. One ISP network, a service provider network, we call as a one autonomous system. So in that autonomous system, there are multiple routers are there and they are connected in some fashion. So we say this is a one autonomous system. In that, the entire all connectivity information and the link cost. Each link have some cost. Okay, and the cost can be defined in a different way. I can simply say that, okay, the two routers, the link which is connecting, this link have cost is defined as a, if I say the cost is defined as a 1, so all links have a cost as 1, something like this. So in this case, if I say I go with the least cost routing, so ultimately least cost routing will give me the shortest, least hop routing basically, because each link cost is 1. So least cost routing, if any algorithm I run which gives me the least cost route between, let us say between A and B, then I am going to get a, basically it is a least hop routing, right? And if the cost also, link cost can be defined with other parameters as well. I can define the link cost maybe based on the distance between the two routers, right? So the link cost is basically more the distance, more the weight is there, link cost is there, right? So least cost will give me the least distance, the path which is a least distance. So different way the cost can be defined, right? I will come to that cost part as well in a protocol which are standard protocol, how the cost, how the link cost is defined, or which metric is used to define the cost. That also we'll talk about. Okay, so a complete information, entire topology information is required, and that's why it's called as a link state algorithm. Also, these centralized algorithms are called link state algorithm. Then decentralized routing algorithms, each node begins with only the knowledge of the cost of its own directly attached link. So say for example, this and this and this. Okay, so initially, if I say that in this case, this node have the information about these two only because they are directly attached, right? And then in an iterative process of calculation, it finds the least cost path to a set of destination or all the destination or a particular destination. So in the first iteration, it comes to know about its immediate links, and then in next iteration come to know that one hop away links and so on. This way, in iterative manner, this entire you can say topology info. So no node have the complete topology information with. So you see, you can think of that. Okay, for the larger topologies, large size topologies, this centralized routing algorithm can be a kind of a bottleneck. Means a very large topology. Then to get each node needs to get the all the other nodes information and the connectivity information or link information is required, means how this information will be gathered actually. We need to do some kind of a broadcasting. Every node will send its link information to all the remaining nodes. So this will be done by every other node. So you see that, okay, how much traffic will be generated if the, let us say, 1,000 node network is there. So if you look at this, is looks like a centralized algorithm are not for larger topology. They their performance may be a little bit or their performance is complexity increases more, you can say. So in such cases, the decentralized routing algorithms works better because they don't have to keep in this, each node don't have to keep the complete topology information. Every node is means always keeps the information of its neighbors. Neighbors means the immediate neighbors, right? And the information of any update that disseminate in the network from neighbors to neighbors. Suppose if this node, it will send to its neighbor, any change happens, then these neighbors, each neighbor send to their neighbors this direction or this direction, and then further these neighbors, they send to their neighbors. This way the information disseminate from one end of the network to other end, or one node to another other node. So these algorithms, you see that convergence time will be more. We'll see that when we'll particular one algorithm we'll discuss, that's a Bellman-Ford algorithm, which is a decentralized algorithm. So there we'll see that how this algorithm is inferior in terms of the convergence time. The amount of time it takes to means it takes to any update in the network to reach to all the nodes, right? So that time we call as a convergence time, means after that all the nodes are on a common state and for there is no update is moving, right? So that we'll call as a convergence time, how much time it takes. So convergence time in the centralized algorithm is very less. If we just say that, okay, the initial information dissemination is done by some way, then after that algorithm is running very fast, because because then there is no information needs to be captured, and in every node individually run the algorithm. So we'll see that's a one. So decentralized and a centralized algorithm. Then the next is next way, another way to classify the algorithms, routing algorithms. This is a static routing algorithm, a dynamic routing algorithm. So in a static routing algorithm means routes changes very slow over a time. Means once one time we have calculated the routes, then now there is no change in the routes, right? It's a very link weights are not changing. Routes are not changing because why it is not changing? Because maybe link weights are static and they are not changing. Only in the case of some failure or something, then only some change happens. Otherwise, it's almost all the time it is remain same. Dynamic routing algorithm means route change due to the traffic load or change in topology. So if my link cost is defined as a traffic load, let's say more the traffic load, then if the traffic load changes on the link, then the link cost is also changed. Say for example, if the link cost is defined as the cost of a link is defined as 1 upon traffic carried by the 1 upon uh, yeah, you say not 1 upon, we say link cost is traffic carried by the link. Okay. So now suppose it's a 100 Mbps is a total capacity of this link, and now currently it is a 10 Mbps traffic is moving, then its cost will be different compared to if the 20 Mbps traffic is going on this link. So now it depends upon at what granularity you are changing the cost, means so it is that mechanism has to be devised. But the important thing to understand is that link cost is connected to the amount of traffic carried by the link, and which that is going to be different over a period of time. Even at a millisecond level, it can be different. right? So then your routes are dynamically, your routing algorithms run at a frequent intervals and try to get the latest, get the routes based on the latest link cost, right? Practically, it is not feasible solution because you see, you think of that, okay, if your routing algorithm is running or the routes are changing at a millisecond level or a second level even, or even at a minutes level also the routes are changing, then there will be instability in the network and your packets will be again can stuck in the loop or maybe delayed, and it's that's not uh, uh, the good situation, right? So usually dynamic algorithm means in theoretically it looks good in terms of that we uh, but if the very frequently the link cost is changing, that's not encouraged, right? So mostly the standard algorithms which we implement in which the link they are mostly static. Only thing is if it is some link fails or some link is out or new link has been added, then only the routing needs to be rerun and the routes needs to be recomputed. So another classification is based on this load sensitive and load insensitive basically. So that is related to the link cost. Link cost changes due to the change in the congestion level like this I explained. So based on that also. So theoretically, as I said, it's good, but yeah, but in a larger context, if you'll see the load sensitive link cost based on the load is not very practical in the real networks. Okay, so now we will, this routing, how to understand this means a network I can represent a network in the form of a graph, you know that. So you can consider these are all routers, U, V, W, X, Y, Z, and these routers are connected in this fashion. So hosts have been removed from that. So as I mentioned that, okay, there may be a somewhere here host is there, H1, here H2, and like that other hosts are connected. So basically we are calculating the path from, let us say H1 to H2, H2 to H3 and something. We are interested in to know that because these hosts are generating the packets and these packets needs to be delivered to the respective destinations. And for that purpose, we are interested to know the route, what route will be taken by the packets between H and 2. But as I mentioned that, okay, ultimately this problem is boils down to the path or route between the source router to the destination router, right? So source router means this one, suppose this is the sender and the destination router is this router. So like that, basically it is from router to router. So we say just a network of router, and that I can visualize as a graph, right? So these values which are mentioned over these links which are connecting these routers or any two routers is that value is a cost, right? So presently we are not going into that how this cost value is there. This will be required when I need to implement a protocol in the protocol I will say, okay, how to compute the link cost, right? So then that formula I have to give, and based on that the link cost will be assigned to all the links, and then my protocol will run. So as an abstract problem I can simply say, okay, this is the cost, in some way I representing the cost of this link, maybe distance, maybe congestion level, maybe a delay or something else, whatever parameter, maybe type of link or something. So I say graph, so which contains n nodes and e links. So set of routers and set of links are there. So this is my, you can say, representation of the network in the form of graph. So how the Dijkstra algorithm runs, I hope you have, it's a equivalent, it is a similar to the Prim's algorithm, shortest path route, shortest path, which calculate the shortest path between any two endpoints. So it is similar to that. So first we look at algorithm, and then with the help of one example, I will explain you that how the routes are computed. So initialization step, you have n dash. So n dash is basically a subset of nodes, right? So initially, NDAS will a subset of nodes. So So if any in this subset, if any node is there, so any node is there, that means that no, if a node V is there in the subset, means if the least cost path from the source to that node V is known, then we'll include into that. So that's why initially, if this is the source node, if I say this is the source node which is running this algorithm, so running the algorithm and try to find out the path, shortest path or least cost path is a more precisely from U to V, U to X, from U to Z, U to W, U to Y. So this algorithm is run by U. Before that, as I mentioned, before that, the one step which has been done before that is that U knows the entire topology information, right? So entire topology is, you can say, known to the U, and that process needs to be completed before this algorithm to run, right? So initially at source node is the only node, means source node, we'll just keep it in n dash only the U. And then for all nodes P, if the P is adjacent to U, then DP, so DP is, what does it mean by DP? DP is the cost of the least cost path from the source node to the destination P, right? So the source node to the destination P, that is the DP. So if the P is adjacent to U, then adjacent means that like X is adjacent to U. So we know that dx equals to basically cost of link between U and X. Similarly, d of V equals to cost of link U to V. So for all adjacent node, this is then, and the nodes which are not adjacent, like W is also adjacent node because direct link is there, but Z is not adjacent, Y is not adjacent, right? So for Z and Y, so I'll say in this case dz equals to infinity, because right now I don't know what is the cost, right? So this is the initialization step, and after that, the next step is to find a node Q which is not in the n dash, such that dq is a minimum. If the dq is a minimum, then you can add the q into the n dash, and then you need to update the dp for all the p adjacent to q and which are not in the n dash. So this updation will happen with this using this equation. So either dp will contain the old value, or if the new value, this value dq cqp is minimum, then the dp will be overwritten by this new value. So basically it is a new cost to p. So new cost to p is either old, so new cost to p is either old cost to p or the known shortest path cost to q plus the cost from the q to p. And this loop will run until my NDES sat comprises with all the nodes, means it includes until it is not including all the nodes. Once all the nodes are there in this n dash, means then this process will stop. And how it comes to know how many nodes are there, as I mentioned, the prior step before even this running this starting this algorithm, the node U needs to gather the connectivity information of the entire topology along with the link cost. So that should be known to the U, right? So now we will move to the working example of this same topology we are considering, and assuming that this algorithm is run at view. You can consider to run it as a Z also, W, V, X, Y. So in a real networks, what happened that, okay, once the entire topology information is gathered by all the nodes, then all the nodes parallelly run the algorithm individually, independently they run the algorithm. And because they have the consistent view of the topology, all the nodes, so the routing will be consistent across all the nodes, right? And means the objective is also the way, because the same algorithm they are running and the cost, etc., all specified with the same metric, then we will get a consistent routing from all the nodes. So few data structures we need to understand. I think already we have come across that dv and so n dash is, we know that this set dv is as I mentioned that it is a cost of the least cost path from the source node. So what is the source node in our case? It is a u. So from the source node to the v. So this is for v, this is for w, this is for x, and this is for y, and this is for z, right? And that is for the current iteration. As I said, it's an iteration wise iteration. This is the first step. So in the first iteration, what is the cost, and then this cost is can update in the next iteration. So in the current iteration, what is the cost from u to v, least cost from u to v, that is specified in the dv, and the pv is the for that what is the previous node for that path, for the least cost path, which is the previous node, right? And n dash is the subset of nodes, and we include a node in the subset if we know the least cost to that node in a definite manner. Okay, so very first step is initially n dash contains u only, and then you know only u, so the direct link cost only it knows that the neighbors which are directly connected. So dv cost to v from u is 2, right? And the previous node, because it's this v is directly connected to u, so the previous node is u. Then w, the cost is 5 and the previous node is u. X cost is 1 and the previous node is u, because these three direct links are there. For other two links, the cost will be infinity because that is not known. Okay, now from this it will take the, which one is a minimum? A minimum cost it gives. So the minimum cost it gives is x for the node x. So this will be added into n dash set. So now in a you can say step 1 means after 0 the step 1 my n dash contains x. So you can say now this is, you can say, added into this. Now after adding this according to this step, okay, sorry, I'll just go here. So after adding this you need to update the least cost for the other nodes if it is updated after adding x. So you can see the cost to v is not changing, it remains same only to u only after adding the x. After adding the x, the cost to w is changing. So you can see here after adding x, now the cost to u to w is now become 1 plus 3 4. The direct link cost was 5. So now it becomes cost 4 and the previous link for w is now x. Previous link on this least cost path, the previous link is now it is x. Sorry, previous hop is or previous node is x. So that's why it's a x. Okay. This is already included, so no need to calculate the least cost for this. And y, so y after adding x, you can see the cost to y is now 1 plus 1 2. So from infinity it becomes 2 and the previous node is x. And z is still, the cost is infinite. So now from this step also you need to take the minimum. It can take either this one, this is also minimum and this is also minimum. So either node v can be included or the node y can be included. So your least cost path will not, you will not get a different path. If you include this also, then also you will get the same set of paths or same routes between the nodes. And if you are including this also, then also you'll get the same. So I am adding this one. You can try over the other one. So after adding the node y in your set, so now this node y is added and w is still not added. So let me clear this so it will be easy to understand. Okay, so now we are here now. So now in a step 2 we'll enter. Now in a step 2, after adding this y, some of the least cost to the some of the destinations may some of the destination least cost may change. So that change we need to see. V's cost is not changed because if we via x will go, via y you will go, v cost will be more than the what is the present cost. So it will remain 2 only. Okay, W, what about the W? So W, if you'll see via Y, if you'll go to the W, then the cost will become 123, which is less than the present cost via X, that is 1 plus 3, 4. So that's why it is updated to in this step 3Y, right? And these two nodes have been already included, so no need to calculate. And for Z, now we have a path. After including Y, the Z path is via Y. So then cost is 1, 2 plus 2, 4. So 4Y is there. Now this one is a least. So in the next step, it will add the node V into the set. So node V is added into the set. So this node is added. So in the next step, we don't need to calculate. And after adding the V, the cost to the W is not changing. That is still 3 only. And cost to the Z is also not changing. That is still 4 only. So we will just simply, no updation is there in that, but we'll choose the minimum. So minimum is 3. That is for the node W. So W node will added into that. And after the next step, we'll add the Z. Right. So now, so what is the outcome? So as we have learned that, okay, this is a routing process runs, right? And after this, the outcome of this routing is a forwarding table construction. So how the forwarding table will be constructed at U? So the destination node, destination, and I specify link or interface or whatever it means. We are just specifying the, so this forwarding table we are creating for the which node? Node U. Okay, because we run this algorithm at U, and after this routing, the node U wants to know that what will be the next link for reaching destination V, X, W, Y, Z. So what are the destinations are there? So the destinations are, let us say I just write V, W, X, Y, and Z. These are the 5 destinations. So for V, so if you just look at V, so the previous node is U and the cost is 2. So previous node is U, so that means basically UV link will be used for if a packet arrives at node U for the destination V, or in other words, if a node which is connected, host which is connected to U and then host connected to V, so if the packet is sent by H1 for H2, then you will receive this packet and is supposed to forward on this link so that the packet can be delivered to H2, right? So that's why UV link is there, this interface. For W, if you just look at W, so what is the previous node for the W? Y, right? And for Y, what is the previous node? X. And for X, what is the previous node? U. So basically for W, it will be UX is the link, right? And for X, anyway, it is a UX link only. For Y, so Y again, it will be the UX only. You can get it like this. Y means basically the previous node is X, and X is the direct neighbor, or you can say immediate neighbor of U. And for Z, Z is this one. So previous node is Y, and for Y, the previous node is X, so it will be UX. So for 4 destinations, UX link will be used, and for 1 destination, UV link will be used. So this is a forwarding table constructed after running this algorithm, routing algorithm. And now the datagrams will be forwarded based on this forwarding table. Right? So any question? I think it's straightforward, but still if you have any doubt. Okay, so let's move to the next. Okay, so we'll discuss this and then we'll close. So there is one problem in this in the link state algorithm. Uh, if the link cost, suppose the link cost is equal to the load carried on the link, right? As I mentioned, the traffic or the load carry, based on that, if a link cost we decide, and link costs are not symmetric. Yeah, remember that here we have considered the link cost is symmetric. Symmetric means V to W cost is 3 and W to V is also cost is. So V to W and W to V, the cost is same, that is 3. So if we consider this, then we'll say the links are symmetric. But it may be possible that the links may be asymmetric also, right? So you may have a V to W is a separate cost and the W to V is a separate cost. The cost is different, right? So then we'll say the link are asymmetric, and usually we show such links in a with arrow. So this is V to W link and this is W to V link. If it is a symmetric, then we specify with just a line without any arrow. Okay, so now we'll see that what is happening here. So link costs are not symmetric. So here it is not symmetric and the cost is equal to the load carried on the link. So in this topology, we are assuming that, okay, this node D is generating 1 unit of traffic, node C is generating 1 E unit of traffic, and node B is generating 1 unit of traffic. So initially, this topology was like this before no traffic was there, right? So that time, if I consider is that there is no traffic, then in both the direction, this direction 0, this direction no traffic, this direction 0, this direction no traffic. So all direction no traffic was there. So 0, 0 was there. So initially, let us say node C as a choose to, and they are generating traffic. Source is D, C, B, and amount of traffic is 1 E and 1 respectively. And then destination for all these nodes is A, let us say. A is the destination, right? So then in that case, first time how they will, which path will be chosen, clockwise or anti-clockwise. So this is anti-clockwise, right? So C, let us say choosing this path. So it's sending its traffic, E unit of traffic on this link in this direction, and D is sending in this direction, right? Now, after once this traffic is going on, then the new cost, the cost of the link will change. So the cost of this link will be what? This link is E, because E unit of traffic is going in this direction, and in this reverse direction it is 0 because no traffic is going in this direction. Now here what happened, in this direction E is already coming and 1 unit of traffic is going from B to A. So that's why 1 plus E for this link cost will be 1 plus E. Similarly, this link cost is 1, and D link between DC and CD, the cost is 0 because no traffic is moving. Now as per this current state, now because the link load is changed, so that the route also will change, right? Because least cost path now is, this path is no more a least cost. So after that, what happened, based on this, now for B, if we say B in which direction it will forward the traffic, so this direction 0 cost, path least cost, the cost for this clockwise, anti-clockwise, this is a clockwise, yeah, clockwise direction path will be 0 cost, 1 cost path is there, B to A. And in the anti-clockwise direction, the cost is 1 plus E. So B will use this clockwise direction path from B to A, right? And C also will take this path because this path cost is 1 at present, and this cost path is E1 plus 2E. C to A, this path is 1 plus 2E cost, and this path have just 1 cost path. So this is a least cost, so it will move in this direction. And D also will forward its traffic in this path only, because D's traffic will not change, because D earlier also it was sending on this path and now it is also sending on this path. So ultimately B and C will forward its traffic. Their means route is now you can say change from anti-clockwise to clockwise direction. So now in this state, what happened? Each link, how much traffic it is carrying, So this link is now carrying 2 plus E, right? Because this is generating 1 unit, this is generating E unit, and this is generating 1 unit. So all these nodes are sending. So on this link, in all the traffic is merging. So 2 plus E. Here on this link in this direction 1 plus E, and in this link on this link it is 1. And the reverse direction path is 0, 0, 0. So again, it will change, because now based on these new values of the traffic load on each link, they will compute the least cost path once again. And that due to that, I hope that you understood that now it will again change from the clockwise to anti-clockwise direction, right? So D also will start sending on this link, and C also will start and on this path, and B also. So this problem is called as a oscillation problem, route oscillation problem. So if we have the link cost based on the load carried on the link, then it is the traffic is oscillating, and this oscillation is not good for the stability of the network, because what happens, some packets will follow in this, maybe some packets will reach out of order, and you know that the cost of the out of order packet reaching, even some packets may stuck into loop also, right? So it is something the C is forwarding to D, and then before that D is changing the routing table change, and then again D needs to forward to C to reach to A. So like that, there may be multiple times packets oscillate between C and D before reaching to the A. So this instability is not good for the routing system. So such things should be avoided. Okay, so we will let us stop here, and what we'll do, this OSPF is the protocol, as I mentioned, which is based on this, and this OSPF protocol we'll discuss in the next class. But yeah, Dijkstra algorithm we have discussed how it computes the route, and now this protocol related specific information that we'll do in the next class. Okay, so if you have any quick question, you can ask.